Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So, the coronavirus lockdown is easing, and Boris Johnson says this is the biggest step yet. And I love the way that this is all being phrased in a way to say, oh, aren't you lucky, lucky people to be allowed freedoms which are innate when you're born? Yes, aren't you lucky that the government is letting you do these things that they were previously restricting you from doing? How lucky you are. So, don't let mummy government down now. As I say, that many businesses, including pubs, restaurants, hairdressers, and cinemas, can reopen from Saturday. But Boris Johnson said the public must not let them down by being complacent about social distancing, and he would not hesitate to reimpose restrictions if the number of COVID-19 cases rises. But targeted local measures would replace blanket national ones, he said. So, yes, now that you've been allowed back to normal life, or almost, if you can remember what that was like, that you're such a lucky person to have this luxury of not having unnecessary government intervention into your personal life. So don't ruin it by thinking that you deserve the freedoms that you were born with. No, because government will take it away if you misbehave. But on top of this, it's kind of ridiculous that they don't have the self-realization when they're saying that the targeted local measures would replace the blanket national ones. So, well, this seems to be very similar to the collectivist versus individualist argument that we've heard over the past few years, really. In particular, it's been rife. That if you go from an individualist perspective, each individual is on their own, and you do what you can as an individual with your own wants and desires, and you understand that helping out others will help out you. Good stuff. And you treat other people as individuals because you don't really know anything about them. Right. Compared to the collectivist argument, which is, they belong to that group, therefore they are like that, and we can typecast them. Very straightforward. And then, of course, they go, okay, this isn't quite accurate. It's because they belong to a subset group or a subgroup within this larger group, so let's treat them according to that. Okay, this isn't quite accurate. We need a slightly smaller group, until eventually you go down to just the individual. And you end up at the same point, just the individualists are there already. So, welcome aboard. And we're seeing the same thing here. That you're going, okay, so, fine. The nation doesn't need to lock down because some people are affected and scared. Instead, it's going to be a targeted lockdown of maybe a county or a city or a town. So, okay, do you think we can go into the group a little bit more? Do you think we could possibly say, for the people who are anywhere in the country, basically, they should be aware of the information as best we know, and therefore be able to make their own decisions? Do you think that might be a way to go? And do you think maybe you shouldn't be incentivizing behavior of loans and government grants so that you don't have to work? So don't give that out at all. But if you are really concerned about it, then one flip way of doing it is to say then, if you're choosing to work and be out and about, then you have a kind of a coronavirus insurance, basically, whereby if you wish, you can take out the insurance to be covered for coronavirus, and therefore if you do then get it, you'll be treated and it'll be covered by your insurance, kind of a add-on to national insurance, if you will. Or of course you can choose to not do that and therefore pay out of your own pocket for coronavirus treatment, or just not get it, basically. That there could be that way of doing it as well, but I understand that British government doesn't want the individual to have that much freedom of choice of deciding whether or not they want this level of health insurance. I think they're probably also concerned that they're aware that the taxes are too high, and therefore trying to say, we won't tax you, but make your own decision. People are going to be, oh, hell no, I've been paying in far too long and not got anything out of it. No way am I going to willingly give up my money now that I finally get to see more of it. So I understand that. But also, of course, if people get to decide, then chances are they wouldn't be paying any more anyway. They won't be paying the same amount for a superior service. And what's not to love about that? So their disciplined approach. England's Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, who spoke alongside Mr. Johnson at Friday's Downing Street briefing, said no one watching would think the easing was a risk-free step, but that there is no perfect exact way of doing it. Which is precisely right. you do have to do it. The sooner the better. And if this is the only step that they're comfortable with doing, then let's get it underway. The other change that they've had is, instead of saying it's going to be 2 meter social distancing, it'll change to 1 meter plus, which means you should take additional precautions when people are within less than 2 meters. Essentially, it's just the exposure time. It's that it's 10 times quicker, basically. As I mentioned before, that it's about if you're 2 meters away from somebody for a minute, it's the same as being a meter away from them for 6 seconds. It's that kind of time difference for exposure. It's a bit similar to half-life of radiation, basically, but in terms of distance instead. That's what they're mentioning. When it comes to people milling about and moving past each other, I would say that's very akin to supermarkets, so I don't think there's really going to be a problem. But you're not going to be allowed to stay at the bar getting your drinks. So I think we're going to see more of a table service kind of thing, not least because they've said that it's advised to book your table in advance, because of course they've got limited capacity and everybody who can is going to try and be serving people outside, not least because, as Johnson has made it aware, that the COVID bucks won't be valid after October, that people really have to be able to get back on their feet as soon as possible. But seeing as in hospitality and specifically in food, that the profit margins are very thin, as you would expect in any sort of capitalist economy, that if you're then limiting the amount of people they can serve, you're limiting their profits, and it may very well not be feasible. They work to the best of their abilities with the restrictions set, but if you're restricting the amount of people allowed in, then something's got to give, and it's either going to be the businesses and or it's going to be the prices. In which case you can expect everything to get far more expensive, and not for a superior product. I suppose the superior product would be you get more time alone in a public place, if you find that superior or not, but that is what you're paying for. And Johnson said good progress was being made toward the reopening of other businesses such as gyms, nail salons and nightclubs, and that a timetable will be set out next week. And we can't wait. Can you wait? Having your freedoms back. How exciting. But unfortunately, that not only have they said there was a real possibility of a second wave, because it could have had time to mutate and people's immune systems not be used to it, even though it would have done by now. And if you're going for herd immunity, that would have been perfectly fine. But as the BBC Health and Science correspondent loves to cram down our throats, they say the virus is now at much lower levels, but it has not gone away and may never go away. Until we have a vaccine, it will always pose a threat. You've got to keep banging that vaccine drum, which is disconcerting. That, as Joe Rogan likes to say as well, that they're really not focused on keeping people healthy, telling people to maybe meditate, and that's not just hokey pokey hippie stuff, but actually the neurological effect in then calming you down and lowering your cortisol then means you get better sleep, you get better rest, and your body functions better because you've got less cortisol, which is basically the stress hormone. And meditating can have that physiological, neurological response within you, so it does help. Eating the right things, getting enough vitamin D in particular, and exercising so that you've got good blood flow and heart health, that all helps as well, and people really aren't doing it. And as we've seen in America with obesity being such a big risk, that obviously being America, that's understandable. So if we can deal with those things, then obviously you'll be dropping healthcare costs considerably anyway, but it will also affect coronavirus. So let's hope we can go on to that. And it seems as if the government doesn't care about telling people what to do. So maybe if it could put that energy into explaining what is worthwhile for a healthy life, and maybe then not incentivizing such poor behavior. I mean, big sugar subsidies would be one way to stop it. And of course, a National Health Service that includes everyone regardless of anything might be another thing to look at. The closest they're trying to get is, of course, taxes on alcohol and tobacco, which is a start. But anyway, as always, until next time, stay healthy, keep active. Most of all, have a good one.